October took up a lot of my time, and I'm trying to finish up my 40 for 40 reviews this year, which were just 40 of my favorite films because I turned 40 this year. And now I get to do it because I don't have to review a horror movie every day. So this is Arrival. It's available on Netflix and it has audio description. Stars Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, Forrest Whitaker, and is directed by Denis Villeneuve. I have to say his name. I don't know. I love it. Yes, this is a rare film for me because when I saw this in theaters, I almost never give a film an A+ grade because I reserve that for like a section of films that I throw into sort of like lasting, standing the test of time, films I will watch over and over, uh, films that I will do 40 for 40 for, stuff like that. And there was something about Arrival while I was sitting there in the theater watching it that I was just so captivated by the film that I knew. I just knew. And I was brought in and pulled in. And I've actually seen this movie quite a few times for a film that's fairly recent. And it never ceases to amaze me. This is actually my first time watching it since losing my vision, though. And with audio description. So this was an interesting experience for me. Most of the time, I think the audio description here is doing a great job. I think the audio description really tries to get you immersed in a world that does not exist, with these aliens that don't exist, and giving you a solid description of what they look like. I agreed with a lot of the choices about how they chose to describe the aliens, their ships, the atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. There were some choices, though, that they made outside of the aliens that I thought was a bit of a reach in terms of being a little too interpretive. That stretched it into sort of what I would have, if I was doing the quality check, I would have said no, find a different way. And sent it back. I thought it was a little too much, doing a little bit too much interpretation for me. There's one scene towards the beginning where when we're seeing Amy Adams with her daughter, where it says that the doctor is giving her news that her daughter has an incurable disease. It's like, that's a lot of information, by the way, for a scene that's just shot through imagery. We need to be able to figure that out for ourselves, and saying it's an incurable disease, I don't know. I feel like that's just describe what's happening and let us interpret whether or not it's an incurable disease or not. Plus, if you just watch the film, it explains the whole thing. So, just why is that up front? It's not something that's presented definitively within that scene, within that sequence. It's something that maybe you could interpret if you chose to, if that's the way that you want to look at this film. But it's definitely something that felt like it was the AD writer's choice to interpret at that moment. There's also kind of a half-assed attempt at just blanket describing something when they're flying Amy in at the beginning, and we're seeing sort of base camp for her at the ship, and there's a passing, just a quick reference of it. This is a major operation. I was like, what? By what definition? I mean, describe. Just say like the tense seem to expand for miles or something. You know, like come up with a way, but don't define major operation for me. Like there's just a couple things where I felt like they took the easy route and they just decided to overinterpret the scene, and I didn't like it, especially because I've seen the movie. I'm not gonna say they're wrong, but it's it felt like it was written by somebody who'd seen the movie a couple times and was like, well, this is what the movie is. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I could do that as a movie critic, but I'm also not doing accessibility for blind people who have never seen the movie before. I think you kind of have to take yourself out of the situation of, oh, I just saw it, let me interpret this movie, and just keep it really sort of straightforward information, need to know basis, you know, while also making sure we're getting as much real description about things as possible. I would have just, in the first scene, decided to describe her intense grief over learning this news, and then just kind of moved on and not gone ahead and defined an incurable disease as being part of the thing, because it's not something that, you know, I promise you there was no text on the screen that flashed. It was like, incurable disease, you know, where like he like wrote it on a board or something. He was talking to Amy Adams. He was like, incurable disease, and she was like, oh my god. It's not like that. So and then for major operation, I just think it was an easy way out of finding a different way of trying to shape how expansive the operation is by describing it, you know, just describe it, be like, oh, it just expands, you know, tents fill our frame, I don't know, trucks and tents fill the frame, however you want to say it. Hundreds of people seem to be at work. There are other ways than just copping out and being like, this is a major operation. It just, you know, by whose definition? And then also major operation kind of leaves the door open for, oh, well, how major? Because my definition of major operation is, you know, we're building like permanent facilities, that we've got barracks for people to live in. We've got, you know, maybe like fencing around the outside. We've got, you know, like a road in and out with like a guard gate. Oh, wait a minute. You're letting my mind wander because you didn't give me the actual description of what I can see on the camera, on the screen. Instead, you decided this is a major operation. Now, what's funny is that the rest of the narration is actually pretty good. There's some interesting choices that I think some people would disagree with, but they're not really unnecessary because they're not really spoilers. They just go ahead and define what these things are called and what their language is called a little bit before you actually hear what these things are called and what their language is called. Before the word is actually used within the context of the film, they just go ahead and define it. So instead of saying like Alien 1, Alien 2, they just go ahead and call them the heptapods, and the is it logograph or something like that. They go ahead and tell you what like their language is called and what the aliens are called. So I don't know that it really matters. It's not like a spoiler. It's not like a shocking spoiler. So just kind of, I don't know that I care too much because they're not. I don't think that. I think they're just using it's like using somebody's name in a movie before you hear it. Sometimes I get a little tired of hearing man in a raincoat walking around, and then like 3 scenes down the road, man in a raincoat turns out to be David. And then you're like, wow, that was a shocking turn of events. And then it's just David for the rest of the film. And then now you get to follow David. And I'm like, was that really a spoiler? Couldn't we have just called him David? So that's the type of person that I am when it comes to names. I'm like, just make it easier for me. Just so I prefer consistency when it comes to the names of things, unless it's a spoiler, unless it's an actual spoiler who this person is. If it's just some random dude and nobody has said their name out loud yet, let's go ahead. Let's lock it. Let's get it in there. You know. But that's kind of how I felt here. I'm like, their names are not spoilers. They're not like, oh no, wait, what? You know, no, there's nothing shocking about their names. Anyway, so that is not what the twist is. It has nothing to do with their names. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit of a mix. I was really happy with some parts of it. I thought they did a really good job of describing how the aliens write, and what their actual messages look like, all the way through, you know, and there are many cutaways because Amy Adams keeps having these memories slash, yes, memories slash visions, and I thought that was handled really well. There are some times where they sort of overinterpret her emotions really quickly, but I thought that they weren't giving you information. They were just giving her reaction to things. It's really hard to describe that. Like when she sees the aliens for the first time, there was a way that they described how she was kind of going through like all of these emotions at the same time, which is kind of how you would be in the situation, because she's kind of rapidly, as soon as she gets there, she gets to like, she doesn't even really get to process before she's like up there and meeting aliens. So yeah, it's some of that was fine. I did notice it and I was like, I feel like that's going to be more like personal preference, whether or not you, but at the same time, I kind of thought that was, you know, when you're connecting, when you're just kind of using that to connect that, I didn't get any information. It was just sort of like, I don't know. It was fine. That didn't bother me, but sort of the overgeneralization slash revealing of something that we don't know yet, that is sort of revealed later and is more of a twist, was a little bit of those things bother me a little bit more than the others. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes when I want to be critical on narration too, I have this thing now because I know too many narrators where I just don't look at the end. I don't know who did the narration, so that way I can freely feel like I can discuss the narration. I know way too many narrators right now, way too many writers and narrators. So I just want to be able to talk about it, and that's why I'm here. So I bowed out. I don't know who narrated this. I don't know who did the writing. So whoever it is, yeah, this was a 100% fair thing, and I did not stay for the credits. Not that Netflix would let me. It did push me into something else. So I guess all streaming services are so worried about us. They're doing the TV thing where we don't get to watch credits anymore and just move along. Just annoying. Anyway, I love Arrival. It's a fantastic movie. Denis Villeneuve is such an amazing director. If I had to say, you know, every once in a while, like we have these once-in-a-generation filmmakers. Obviously, Scorsese and Spielberg feel like they're from the other generation. And then Nolan came along, right? And he feels like a once-in-a-generation filmmaker. I absolutely believe Denis Villeneuve is a once-in-a-generation filmmaker. And I think it's something that we are starting to embrace and feel about the films he's making and the choices he's making. And I think he's an exceptional director who has such a very high bar, high track record. Arrival absolutely deserved its Best Picture nomination, but it absolutely deserved Amy Adams for Best Actress, and I was so upset. She's so fantastic in this. This is one of my favorite performances of hers. She has to go through so much, and I think, it's just that the Academy has such an aversion to science fiction that they couldn't get over it. They just looked at this and saw a sci-fi film, and couldn't get past it. But my mom doesn't typically like this type of movie, and she loved it. So it was hard to convince her that this was something that she would want to see. And she did. She was like, oh, wow, that was actually really good. It's a fantastic movie. I don't even remember being that hyped to see it. I remember being, intrigued because of Denis Villeneuve, but that was it. I wasn't like, oh my God, get me in the theater, but I was I was intrigued. My interest was piqued back in the day. And I walked out of the theater and I was like, that was the best movie I saw this year. And as I was writing the review, I was like, this is an A+ movie. This is a movie that I don't know where the flaw is. I don't know where it is. I can't find it. I'm sure I could listen to other critics and they could try to pick apart the film, but then I would just put it back together again. I would just, my brain would just be like, no, I disagree. I think this is a perfect movie, from start to finish. So, I think it's got a great story. I refuse to ruin it, so I'm not talking about a lot of the plot details. I'm just kind of fanboying over Arrival and talking about the audio description here, because I'd really love, if you've never seen Arrival, I'd really love for you to watch it. It's one of the greatest sci-fi dramas probably ever. So I will go that far with Arrival. I will say it's probably one of the greatest sci-fi dramas ever. Absolutely give this my stamp of approval. I gave it when it came out, and I will continue to give it for as long as I'm able to talk about it. I was so happy this came on Netflix. I saw it there and I was like, this is definitely going to be on my 40 for 40 list. So there it is, Arrival, and I'm still giving it an A+. So, as I did before, it didn't have to move into an A+ category. It was one of those rare films, but I just saw it in theaters and I was like, this is a film I'm going to love forever, and I still love it. Test of Time is probably a little bit of a stretch, and it hasn't even really been 10 years. I will admit that. But my love for this film has not wavered one iota. So, I don't think it ever will. I don't know how we could possibly change how I feel about this film. So, that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will hopefully hit 200 subscribers this year, because you'll click subscribe and stay with me and see what else I've got to offer. You can also go to my website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or Threads at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what is audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the adna.org. That's the adna.org. It'll let you know who's narrating your favorite film and television series, possibly like Arrival. You can look it up and see who it is I have slighted. I slighted them for a reason. I do this sometimes when I want to be critical about something, because, again, I know too many narrators. So I don't want to be influenced at all by their narration. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will watch something else and see you guys on the other side.